Thank you very much, President Martin, trustees, deans, faculty, staff, and 2016 graduating class of San Jose State University. This award is particularly treasured by me for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes it has to do with the people that I've encountered since I have been here. I want to pay particular note of three, if I can. I want to start with, however, with my wife. I'm up here receiving this award, but my wife of the last 47 years has been a full and equal partner to the journey here. I also want to recognize Miss Virginia Silviera. Virginia Silviera was working in the business department, business office at San Jose State when I arrived on campus. And when I walked into the office to sign up, do the paperwork for my athletic scholarship, people began to disappear into their offices, discreetly headed for the exits, and so forth, as this 6'8", 250-pound man-child with an obvious attitude walked into the building. But Virginia stepped right up, signed me up for my scholarship while chattering away about what I was going to do with my life, what plans did I have, and so forth. When she saw in the papers that I was getting this award, she had a friend of hers contact me and congratulate me. Virginia is here today, 1 month to the day after celebrating her 100th birthday. Happy birthday, Spartan, and thank you so very much for being here. I look forward to celebrating your 110th birthday with you, and with a lot of help from and support from a lot of caring and loving people, and with some luck, I might make it. So I look forward to that. Second, I would like to mention Mr. Dick Hell. Dick joined the San Francisco office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, yes, that FBI, in 1968, and eventually rose to become agent in charge of the San Francisco Department of the FBI. That was about the same time that I was teaching at San Jose State and organizing the Olympic Project for Human Rights, and according to my 3,000-page FBI file, they were running and following me all over the country at the time. Over the last decade and a half, Dick and I, both more or less retired, have become very close friends, with a standing promise to have lunch at every opportunity possible. And with that 1960s history, what do we talk about? We talk about growing old, and we both agree that somebody should have warned us. We talk about what really matters in life, but mostly we talk about our families, we talk about our children, and we talk about our grandchildren. And I have discovered a curious thing. Dick wants the same things for his children and granddaughters that I want for my children and grandsons. A safe world and society, a clean and healthy environment, the freedom and opportunity to become all that they can be. And we have also found that we have fewer and fewer differences in terms of how we should get there. Grandpa Hell, thanks a lot for being here today. And lastly, I want to mention the patriarch of the York family, Dr. John York. I'm so pleased that he's here. When Dr. York first took the helm at the San Francisco 49ers, I had already been with the organization for over a decade and a half, and I could tell right away that John liked me a little bit. And I emphasize a little bit. But that's okay, John, because I liked you a little bit too. But over the years, I've come to look forward to nothing more than spending time with John, our discussions, debates, exchanges, going into my 30th year of employment at the San Francisco 49ers. What'd you say, John? You have something? When I used to work for the San Francisco 49ers, I enjoyed nothing more than having discussions, exchanging books, and so forth. I've come to love John York, his lovely wife, Denise, and John, thank you so very much for being here today. There's one other reason that I treasure this award. Not just because of the people that I met and the associations that I've had and the fact that I met my lovely wife here, but San Jose State accomplished something that no other institution was able to achieve. Cornell University, where I earned my PhD, wanted to and didn't. UC Berkeley, where I was on the faculty for 30 years, tried to and couldn't. But my alma mater, my Spartans, San Jose State, stepped up to the plate and got it done. And so remains to this day the only institution to which I have ever been affiliated that terminated my contract and fired me in consequence in response to my activism. So it is with unique and very special sense of humbleness and humility and an abiding appreciation that I accept this honorary doctorate of humane letters degree and stand before you today as your 2015 commencement speaker. Graduates, a little over 5 decades ago, I sat exactly where you are, waiting in eager anticipation of our commencement speaker's words of insight, wit, and wisdom. 52 years later, I cannot remember his name, his face, his message, or anything about what he said. But what I do recall with absolute clarity is that he confined his remarks to the time allotted, and that made for me a great speech. Now, that's an exceedingly high bar to meet, especially for a sociologist, but I pledge to give it my best shot. I have always been fascinated and intrigued by the designation of one generation or another as our greatest generation. There was the generation that forged and fought the Revolutionary War. There was the generation that fought and won the Civil War and ended the institution of slavery. And most recently, there was the generation that fought World War II and defeated fascism and imperialism. All of these generations had 3 things in common. They had mass movement support, they confronted and prevailed over great challenges, and for all of their achievements, they left a great deal of work undone. First, mass movements are in the DNA of our political democracy. Sam Adams and his Sons of Liberty throwing 342 chests of tea into the Boston Harbor was not a government program. In fact, the 6 greatest advances in broadening the basis of democratic participation in this nation over its 240-year history originated with mass movements. The abolition movement, the labor movement, the women's suffrage and liberation movement, the civil rights movement, the environmental movement, and the gay rights movement. Each of these movements compels society and its institutions to confront and seek resolution to critical issues that otherwise likely would have been only belatedly addressed, if at all. At some fundamental level, this is both the inherent message and the institutionalized charge of the very first line of the preamble to the United States Constitution, where it says, "We the people of the United States in order to form a more perfect union." It doesn't say we the courts, it doesn't say we the Congress, or we the legislators, or we the governors. It doesn't even say we the presidents. And it most certainly doesn't say we the presidential candidates. So, as with other generations, you have your work cut out for you. You are the most technologically sophisticated, globally connected, globally oriented, and tolerant and inclusive generation in history. For all that earlier generations did and accomplished, we left much undone. For example, you are so much more aware and committed than my generation was when it comes to the status, circumstances, and outcomes of women and girls. In the 1960s, we fought for racial freedom, justice, and equality for all, largely under the presumption that this would resolve the problems of injustice and inequality for everyone. But your generation has come to realize that a great deal of what happens to women and girls does not happen to them because they are Black or Latina or Asian American or Native American. It happens to them because they are women and girls, white women and girls included. You, more than any other generation, realize that we men and boys are not going to anywhere that women and girls don't go as full and equal partners. That men and boys are not going to be everything that we ought to be until women and girls are everything that they can be. Also, more even so than my generation, which fought to eliminate racial barriers to marriage, and so made it possible for people like my daughter Fatima and her husband Joe to marry and have a beautiful family, your generation has established unequivocally that marriage between consenting adults is a right for all, not a bias-based selective privilege for some. In these ways, you, and so many more, you are so much better than we were, so much better than past generations, including my own, for all of our activist effort. And you're going to need all of your education-based skills, all of your openness to inclusiveness, your openness to change and to progress. And most particularly, you're going to need that commitment to participatory citizenship, that dedication to informed involvement, to rolling up your sleeves and organizing with others seeking resolution to the critical issues of your era, as well as to addressing work left undone, and to meeting those challenges thought resolved, but which have resurfaced in some new guise or another. 44 years ago, after publication of, 44 years after publication of Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, environmental issues are more critically significant than ever, and despite deniers, climate change looms as an existential threat to us as a species and to life on this planet more generally. The environmental struggle goes on. 51 years after Lyndon Baines Johnson signed the Voting Rights Bill into act in 1965, achieved at great sacrifice by my generation, state-sponsored impediments to voting rights have resurfaced. And 44 years after Roe v. Wade, the battle for safe, legal, accessible medical services for women, even in this age of the Zika virus, has resurfaced. Along with work left undone and the need to reinvigorate some past movement battles in response to resurfaced challenges, there are new emergent causes that will ultimately demand your attention, movement-level attention. For example, little is likely to be done at the level of critical collaboration and spending necessary to upgrade and protect our regional and national energy and power grids and related infrastructures from looming cyber threats until there's a mass movement among informed, active citizens demanding that private, government interest, Congress, the military, intelligence agencies all come together and begin addressing the cyber-based reality that confronts us all, addressing it as a major front burner issue. In sum, your generation's mandate is clear. in pursuing the job, the occupational mission that you are prepared for through your development as an educated person, through developing your educational skills, you will demonstrate the caliber of your competence and what you can do. In pursuing the mandate for participatory citizenship as a component of we the people, you will demonstrate the courage of your convictions and commitment and who you are. Your success is what you achieve here. Your significance is what you leave here. In closing, I want to make establish three specific imperatives to participatory citizenship. First, keep the faith. In today's 24/7 news cycle, often abetted by an utterly unvetted internet and social media, it is easy to arrive at the conclusion that things are so bad, so complicated, so confused and intractable that there is nothing that can be done to even influence, much less change the status quo. Even were this true, and even if all of our activist efforts and so forth couldn't save us, the very fact that the effort was undertaken will declare and demonstrate for all history that we were worth saving. I believe that it was James Baldwin who stated that we may not be able to solve all the problems we face, but we must face all of those problems that we would solve. But before we even get to the question of facing up to a challenge, much less devising strategies and efforts to change it, we must have the faith that we can change it despite all rational and irrational or conventional wisdom to the contrary. There's an old black gospel song that says, "Faith got me up this morning, and faith carries me through the day." These are not just sweet-sounding lyrics. They are literally true. It is truly by faith that we soldier on. At even the most personal level, we get up every day and organize our lives around plans and calendars and schedules. We even harbor long-term hopes and dreams, though we know that one day we're going to get up and put on our shoes and the coroner is going to take them off of us. But it is by faith that we can look in a mirror with a totally straight face and say, "But not today." On the national scale, I'm reminded of something that happened in 1962. A group of black leaders and opinion makers had gathered at the White House to petition the Kennedy administration for passage of the Civil Rights Bill and the Voting Rights Bill. At the end of a frustrating meeting, then Attorney General Robert Kennedy made a statement that many in the group found so preposterous, so outrageous, so utterly outlandish as to seem patronizing. What Bobby Kennedy had the faith to believe and to say, even to these now hostile, angry, foaming in anger leaders who were angry about the slow progress toward passage of the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Acts, was this. Kennedy said, "If you keep the faith and continue to work at it, in 40 years, a Negro can be elected President of the United States." These black leaders were outraged. Bobby Kennedy was not totally prescient, but he was close enough. In August of 2008, 40 years and 2 months almost to the day of Bobby Kennedy's assassination in 1968, the Democratic Party nominated Barack Obama as its presidential candidate, and the American people put him in the White House not once, but twice. Keep the faith. Another aspect of keeping the faith is not to be distracted by the foolishness and the silliness that goes on. Internet and politically driven conspiracy theories and shadow government theories, black ops, and helicopters flying over your community with plans to put you in a camp, and just outright nonsense. Presidential candidates focusing on how somebody, during the course of debates, focusing on how somebody eats pancakes or tacos, cracking on what somebody is wearing or what they look like, how they look with the face that God and their parents gave them. Presidential candidates during the course of talking about how big their hands are, as if that had anything to do with anything. And if that is, in point of fact, the qualifying standard, then my hands are 14.5 inches from my wrist to the tip of my finger, and I'm willing to throw in a pair of size 17 shoes. Make me the president, if that's where we're going. Keep the faith. Keep your eyes on the prize. Dispense with the foolishness. Second, do not be afraid. On an individual level, the greatest storehouse and repository of human creativity and ingenuity on earth is the cemetery, because people too often are afraid to step out of their comfort zone, to step up and take a chance, to follow their dreams. Be bold, step up, step out, or as my fellow East St. Louis and Miles Davis used to say and tell his musicians in his band, stretch out. That's what freedom is for. If you're not going to stretch out, then what good is fighting for freedom? So be bold, step up. You not only find your purpose in life, your purpose in life also finds you. And it might not exist in your comfort zone. You must move beyond the perimeter of what you know to the realm of your dreams. And remember Virginia Silviera. Don't be afraid to reach out and touch somebody. Embrace the unfamiliar and the other. In a broader context, there's an even greater problem with fear today in America. Today, we would be able to have a much more honest, informed, and enlightened discussion and debate about our problems and how to resolve them as a nation and a society if we were not afraid, mostly of each other. Much is made of the terrorist efforts to make us fearful. Well, the terrorists are going to have to get in line. Today, we are fed a steady diet of fear. Fear and fear-mongering have become staples of our social and political life as a society. Everybody, it appears, is afraid of somebody. We are mobilized and organized, far too often not by our hopes and dreams and aspirations, but by our fears. Fear the left, fear the right, fear the nativists, fear the immigrants, fear the liberals, fear the conservatives, fear the Republicans, fear the Democrats, fear the government, fear the fundamentalists, fear the secular humanists, fear the Muslims, fear the white militias, fear the black and Latino gangs, fear the black youths in hoodies, fear the white cops in uniforms, fear the rich and their great wealth, fear the poor and their demands for government services, fear the banks, fear those demanding health clinic services for women, fear the Tea Party agenda, fear the gay agenda, fear the Black Lives Matter agenda, fear citizens with guns, fear citizens who want to take guns away or put in gun regulations. This is not just a gun problem. We are armed to the teeth against each other with over 300 million guns due to fear. And now there's an almost psychopathic fear of even common sense gun regulation. Fear that the guns might be taken away. Fear begets fear. The social, cultural, and political rule of thumb in America, it seems today, is be whatever you want, but more than anything else, be afraid. We have evolved a culture of fear. This is where we are, but this is not who we are. Fear leads to dislike, dislikes lead to disrespect, disrespect leads to disengagement and hostile relations, and disengagement and hostile relations is the very definition of a house divided and, in our case, armed to the teeth against itself. The implications here, among other things, is that until white cops sit down in mutual respect with black parents in places like Ferguson and other communities and accept and focus on the fact that they want the same things for their children and grandchildren that the black parents do and vice versa. All of the dash cameras and body cameras, all of the anti-racist training, all of the police cultural changing are going to fall short of the goal of improving citizen-police relations. Because first and foremost, police and citizens must stop being afraid of each other. I was speaking to a group of young adults, mixed African Americans, blacks, a few whites recently, and they were saying that because of past circumstances and injustices and killings, they just didn't like cops. We got to get over this, to get past it. We now have diplomatic and trade relationships with Vietnam, who we fought a devastating war against, a war where over 3.5 million lives were lost, and our president was just there speaking to the Vietnamese people this week about trade relations. The very countries defeated by what is currently deemed the greatest generation, Germany, Japan, and Italy, are now our closest allies. The President of the United States was not only in Japan this week, he was in Japan and speaking at the Hiroshima Memorial. And based on what are we saying that we can't get along with our police officers? Citizens and police right here in this society have to be willing to sit down with each other. We got to get past the fear. Our national anthem tells how far we have drifted on the winds and waves of fear. Those words from the national anthem say, the land of the free and the home of the brave. It doesn't say the land of the frenzied and the home of the afraid, but that's what we have drifted to. A major obligation of your generation, both in action and example, will be to bring this nation back that distance from where we are to who we are. And finally, this: continue the struggle. Ultimately, change most legitimately and expeditiously is achieved in our representative democracy when political leadership is pushed through the exercise of participatory citizenship by an educated, informed, and mobilized electorate. There's an insane notion going around now that education has become too expensive for society to support it. If they think that education is expensive, wait till they get the bill for mass ignorance. Aside from your work, your job, find at least one thing that you believe in as a change goal. Inform yourself, commit yourself to activism in support of that goal, and follow up by voting. Activist struggle and representative electoral politics are not mutually exclusive. In fact, the difference between a mob and a movement in a representative democracy is that a movement organizes and mobilizes the vote. And always remember, struggle is not easy. That is why it's called a struggle rather than a picnic. And second, that challenges to forming that more perfect union have always been diverse, dynamic, and ever-evolving. Therefore, the struggle unavoidably is multifaceted, perpetual, and intergenerational, and there are no final victories. In graduating here today, you have taken a major step toward positioning yourself to fulfill your generation's obligation as enshrined in the words, "We the people," and toward contributing to the achievement of that more perfect union. And in light of the magnitude of the challenges you face, if you undertake to meet that obligation to the fullest of your ability, applying all of your skills, insights, and passionate commitment, one day, someone standing here at this very podium, overlooking a future class, might well feel compelled to the judgment that you, the members of the 2016 San Jose State University graduating class, were indeed part of this society's greatest generation. Congratulations, best of luck, and Godspeed.